Hello, I wanted to give an update on my progress so far. The last time I made a video I talked about the medical for the HGV test, and after what seems like forever I finally got my licence back about a week ago, and I managed to book in my multiple choice theory test. Well, I bought a couple of books from Amazon, this one about driving goods vehicles, just a guide, and this one about theory test. And over the past few weeks that I've been waiting, I've been studying from this book, which has lots of practice questions in there and lots of general information. There are 16 sections in this book, but section 16 is the answers, so I guess there are 15 sections in the book. But as this book covers PCV and LGV, I've only studied for the LGV modules because you don't have to sit the theory for passenger carrying vehicles if that's not what you're aspiring to do. So what I've done to help me with my studying is I've just made some notes really myself for each section in a little notepad, and I've revised these. I just want to read out what I've written for you, just in case you're revising for your theory test, or you're wondering what kinds of information is on there. And then I'm going to sit my theory test very soon, and then I'll let you know whether this book worked and whether these notes worked, and I'll let you know what my score was, so you can keep up with me. So we'll start off with section 1, vehicle weights and dimensions. Height, weight and axle weight limits are shown on a vehicle plate in the cab. Unmarked bridges are a minimum of 5 metres, 16 feet 6. If you hit a railway bridge, you must inform the police on the identification plate. You must give them the number on the plate on the bridge. If there is no plate, you have to ring 999. Overhead cables have warning bells on them, and if your vehicle strikes these bells, you must stop and seek advice. If the height of your load is more than 5.25 metres or 17 feet 6, you must tell the telephone companies where you are planning to drive before you start. And then different types of vehicle restraints are straps or ropes, battens and chocks, chains, nets, twist locks. Oversized loads. If your load overhangs by more than 2 metres, 6 feet 6, you must use triangular projection markers, which are red and white. Vehicles over 7.5 tonnes max gross weight or trailers over 3.5 tonne max gross weight must display red and yellow rear markings to show that it's a heavy goods vehicle. Speed limiters. There's a notice in the cab showing the limit. They can affect you when overtaking, and they can only be repaired at a speed limiter centre. If your vehicle overhangs, then you can knock into street furniture like road signs or lampposts and so on. And the ground clearance from the floor to the underside of your vehicle may be a problem for a low loader. Speed limits on a single carriageway is 50 miles per hour. It's 40 miles an hour on a dual carriageway if the vehicle is over 4.5 metres, 14 feet 9 wide. 35 miles per hour on other roads if it's over 4.5 metres wide. Otherwise, it's 60 miles per hour on a dual carriageway and 60 miles per hour on a motorway. When carrying meat carcasses, you can get the pendulum effect when turning. So when you turn, the meat moves as well, and that can affect you when you're turning. You must use twist locks when carrying steel ISO cargo containers that lock into the actual container and hold it on the lorry. You must use chains when carrying steel. When on a narrow road, with passing places, you should be aware of the length of the vehicle and you should pull in when it is safe to let other people pass. In road tunnels, some vehicles over a certain length can be restricted. In icy weather, it can increase your stopping distances by up to 10 times. When approaching an arched bridge, keep to the centre and give way to oncoming traffic. When approaching a humped bridge, you must be aware of your vehicle's length to avoid grounding. Speed limiters work by reducing the fuel to the engine. For oversized loads, again, I did this part in a bit more detail. If the length is over 17 metres or 55 feet, you must stop and phone the signal operator for a level crossing. Triaxles with single wheels stop tankers from rollover the best way. A length over 2 metres, 6 feet 6, as we said earlier, must have the projection marker boards on there, which are red and white. A height over 5.25 metres, as said earlier, 17 feet 6, you must inform the telephone companies before you travel. And a width over 2.9 metres, or 9 feet 5, must use side markers visible from the front and back, which are again red and white and are independently lit. Any width over 3.5 metres needs an attendant, needs an escort. Section 2, driver's hours and rest periods. Tachographs can be digital or analogue. They record your activity in the memory chip on a driver smart card. You are only allowed one smart card and it's valid for 5 years. It records your activity of the past 28 days. Paper tachographs must cover 24 hours with a new chart every day. You must carry the current chart and the previous 28 days. If an enforcement officer stops you, you must produce your charts, records or smart card. And then the symbols for the tachograph are a circle with a V in there, an upside down V, a circle and a V like that. It's the driving symbol. Like a cross symbol means other work, which is what would use when you're doing your vehicle checks, when you're loading or doing training courses. A square with a line through it means periods of availability, which confused me a bit at first, but that's a waiting time that you would know about in advance. So if you knew when you got somewhere that there would be a 2-hour wait, you would put the tachograph to periods of availability. The last one is shaped like a bed, it's just like that kind of shape, and that one means rest or break. When travelling with a co-driver, always use your own card or chart. If you lose your smart card, you must inform the DVLA, who will replace it for a fee. You must keep a manual record of the time spent driving and your breaks and so on, and you have 15 days to get a new card. If the card becomes faulty, you must keep a manual record. Employers must keep records of 1 year minimum of tachograph printouts. If you're getting tired, open a window and turn down the heating and stop when it is safe to do so. For vehicle security, when you're carrying a valuable load, vary your route and ask a local crime prevention officer for advice on being safe. If you leave the vehicle, be aware of the surroundings. Lock the vehicle when leaving it. Fit a kingpin or drawbar lock to your trailer if you are going to leave it. At night, park in a secure area and block the rear doors if possible by parking by a wall or another lorry so no one can open them. If someone not in uniform stops you, ask to see a warrant card. The starting point of each journey goes in the centre. The starting part of your journey goes in the centre of the tachograph. You have 1 week to repair a faulty analogue tachograph. The enforcement officer should be asked to sign your tachograph if he takes one. The officer should write their name and phone number on it. Your driving hours are 9 hours per day, which can be increased to 10 hours 2 days of the week. Your daily rest of 11 hours can be reduced to 9 hours 3 days of the week. Your rest period is 45 consecutive hours. Your average 2-week driving hours should be 90 hours. So if you work 56 driving hours in 1 week, your next week can only be 34 hours. I should say it's a maximum of 90 hours for 2 weeks. I did notice in the book there was a practice question that tricked me a bit. It said, you have drove 4 hours, what is the minimum break? The answer was 30 minutes, where if you have drove 4.5 hours, the minimum break is 45 minutes. A tachograph card covers 28 days. A smart card is valid for 5 years. Replacement tachograph cards or lost or stolen cards you get from the DVLA. At a tachograph rehabilitation centre, a workshop card will be inserted. An enforcement officer or agency will use a control card. The driver's employer is responsible for issuing tachograph charts. An analogue tachograph must be checked every 2 years and recalibrated every 6 years. Section 3. Braking systems. 3 types of braking system. You have your service brake, which is your foot pedal or the main brake, a secondary brake in case your service brake doesn't work, and a parking brake, which must be used when you leave your vehicle unattended. Large vehicles have an endurance braking system or a retarder to control speed on a long downhill, where if you hold the brake on, then the brakes will fade and not work correctly because they get too hot. There are Airlines. You can either have a 2-line system or a 3-line system. In a 3-line system, your service line is yellow, your emergency line is red, and your auxiliary line is blue. If you have a 2-line system, then you would miss out the blue cable. The service line transmits the service brake from the tractor unit to the trailer. The emergency line supplies air to the trailer's air reservoirs, and the auxiliary line transmits the secondary brake signal from the tractor unit to the trailer. In cold weather, moisture in an air brake system could cause ice to form in the pipes, which may lead to low air pressure and or brake failure. In a manually drained brake system, always drain at the end of each day if it is cold. Your ABS light should go off at 6 miles an hour. Trailer swing or jackknife is caused when braking on a bend, too much speed in a corner, or generally heavy braking. The differential allows the wheels to rotate at different speeds. The diff lock should be used on slippery surfaces. Holding the brake downhill will cause brake fade due to overheating. Select a lower gear to help stop that happening. Exhaust brakes are used to control vehicle speed. They are most efficient at high engine speed and in low gear. When stuck in the snow, you should switch off the diff lock as soon as the vehicle is moving. If the brake pedal goes too far in a hydraulic fluid system, the fluid may be low. After driving through a flood, drive in a low gear and gently apply the foot brake to see if it is working correctly. The blue band on the rev counter shows the best use of engine braking. Section 4. The driver. Seatbelts must be worn unless you are exempt for medical reasons, you are travelling less than 50 metres, 162 feet for deliveries or collections. You can take off your seatbelt when doing a reversing manoeuvre. Mobile phones. It is illegal to use handheld phones while driving. You can use hands-free, but it still may distract you. Tiredness. You are most at risk between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. Alcohol can remain in your body for 24 to 48 hours. The effects of drugs can last up to 72 hours. Medication, some prescription or over-the-counter medicines may cause drowsiness. You must check with a doctor if it could affect your ability to drive. Emergency vehicles. Doctors may use green flashing lights when answering an emergency call. When driving a slow-moving vehicle on a narrow winding road, stop in a safe place and let the other people overtake. When a police officer wants you to stop, they will flash their headlights and signal with the left indicator. If a pelican crossing has a central island, you must still treat it as a continuous crossing and give way to pedestrians. At a zebra crossing, always leave it clear when the traffic is queuing. Give way to a car showing a flashing green beacon. It is a doctor on the way to an emergency. Before setting out on a journey, you must make sure your mirrors are clean. Alcohol can cause you to be more confident and take risks. If a front tyre bursts while on the motorway, hold the steering wheel firmly and stop on the hard shoulder. The percent of sleep-related vehicle incidents that include commercial vehicles is 40%, and your most at risk are men 30 years and under. Section 6. The road. Strong winds affect large vehicles, especially on high-level bridges and open and exposed stretches of road or motorway. Give motorcyclists and cyclists plenty of room, as turbulence caused by your vehicle can disturb them. Sometimes a buffer lane is created by closing a lane to help prevent vehicles being blown into the path of other drivers. Empty vehicles are more vulnerable in high winds. In curtain-sided vehicles, tie back the curtains to reduce high side winds. Spray. Make sure vehicle spray suppression equipment isn't damaged or faulty. In very heavy rain, you are allowed to use fog lights if visibility is less than 100 metres. Icy weather. Braking can be as much as 10 times in dry conditions compared to dry conditions. You must not park a large vehicle on a public road or in a lay-by without leaving the vehicle's parking lights switched on. This is except for vehicles under 2.5 tonne in a 30 miles per hour zone. Crawler lanes for going uphill may be used if you're going slow and need to move out of the way of other traffic. High bridges may be closed to certain vehicles in windy weather. They may close a lane to create a buffer lane, so if the lorry was affected by the wind, it has somewhere to go. Air deflectors are most effective when there is a headwind. They streamline and help reduce fuel consumption. You should hose down the wheels when driving off a construction site in case of mud and debris. It is an offence to deposit mud on the road. In snowy conditions, drive in a higher gear than usual to prevent wheel spin. When intending to overtake a lorry that is throwing up spray, move out earlier than normal to reduce the reduction of vision before you pass. When driving through floodwater, go slowly and use a low gear. When driving at a speed of 50 miles per hour in good dry conditions, you should stay at least 53 metres behind the vehicle in front. Section 7. Incidents, accidents and emergencies. If you break down and have a warning triangle, place it at least 45 metres behind the vehicle, but not on a motorway, dual carriageway, hard shoulder or slip road. If you are involved in an incident that either damages property or causes injury, you must stop even if you can't find the owner of the property. You must give the details to anyone who has reasonable grounds to ask. If you don't do this, you must report it to the police within 24 hours. Dr. ABC stands for check for danger, check the response, check the airway, the breathing, the circulation, and give CPR if necessary. In a fire, cut off the fuel supply and disconnect electrical leads. When carrying dangerous substances, the driver must be trained to use firefighting equipment. For burns, you should use cool, clean water. Bleeding, you should apply firm pressure. If you are first on the scene of an accident, the first thing you should do is warn other traffic by switching on your hazards or using a warning triangle if it is safe. Don't remove the motorcycle helmet on someone who has crashed unless it is essential. Don't move casualties unless they are in immediate danger. Keep them warm and comfortable. Don't give them anything to drink or eat. When giving CPR, continue until help arrives. Don't give up on them. When using a SOS phone on the motorway, face the oncoming traffic. Never use water or the red fire extinguisher on flammable liquids because it will cause them to explode if it's something like oil. If someone is showing signs of shock, they would have rapid shallow breathing or a rapid pulse. They would have pale grey skin and be sweating. Before entering a tunnel, you should remove sunglasses, use dipped headlights if you need to, and tune into a local radio to be informed of updates. In the tunnel, if the vehicle is on fire but it can still be driven, drive it out of the tunnel if you can, do so safely. If not, stop and switch off the engine. Section 8. Vehicle condition. Tyres have codes on the side that show the maximum load and maximum speed. Tip. It's a good idea to carry spare bulbs and fuses in case you need to change them on a long journey. Cold weather. Make sure you check the air tanks on brake systems to make sure they're drained of moisture. On new vehicles, this is automatic. Diesel can freeze and turn to a waxy solid when cold. You should use an anti-waxing additive. To start a cold engine, use preheating devices in the engine cylinders. It's like a symbol, like a wire, and when that goes off you can start the engine. Low air pressure has a warning light and a buzzer that will go off when the pressure is correct. Some ABS don't come on with the ignition, so there should be a check switch on the dashboard. Use this before driving. Fifth wheel couplings need to be maintained every month or every 10,000 kilometers to check for damage or defects, including the kingpin locking mechanism. On drawbar units, the eyelet coupling should be inspected for damage or wear. A dog clip is used to secure the kingpin release handle. Drawbar or fifth wheel couplings need regular lubrication with special heavy duty grease. The minimum depth of tread required should be over 3/4 of the breadth of a lorry tyre, that is 1 millimetre. The final thing you should do after recoupling a trailer is release the trailer parking brake. Then you should check all connections, systems and lights are working correctly. If you have heavy steering, it's likely to be a fault with the power steering. You should check wheel nuts soon after their initial tightening to make sure they are at the required torque if you have your wheel changed. The preheat light, like I mentioned earlier, is like a wire like that. That comes on and you should only start the engine when that light goes off. An exclamation mark in a circle is a braking system fault. If the air pressure warning light comes on, stop on the hard shoulder as soon as possible to avoid brakes locking on. If the brake pedal becomes hard to press, park and phone for help. If there is an air leak, you should leave the vehicle parked and report the fault immediately. Failed brake bulbs should be replaced immediately. If the headlights are faulty, don't drive until it is repaired, even if it is light. When driving long distances at high speed, the tyres will be more likely to overheat and disintegrate. Don't overfill the engine with oil, as it could increase pressure in the engine and cause damage. It would also give you a loss of power. When fitting new tubeless tyres, also replace the valve. Always check the oil levels when the engine is cold and on a level surface. You should use antifreeze or anti-waxing additives all year round because it's a good corrosion inhibitor. The oil can symbol means low oil pressure. You shouldn't drive until it is being corrected. A battery symbol is the ignition warning light. This usually goes off when the engine is started, but if it remains on, then there is an electrical fault. Before changing a wheel, make sure it is level. Apply parking brake and wheel chock if available. Before uncoupling a trailer, apply the parking brake and then the trailer parking brake. Black smoke coming from the vehicle, you should stop and get help when it is safe. If you hit a curb with speed, you should check the tyres, steering and suspension in case they are damaged. Burst tyres are more common if the tyre is underinflated. Block or selective gear changing can be used when changing up or down. This saves fuel and improves fuel consumption. A kick down helps select a lower gear for improved acceleration. In automatic transmission, it means to put the accelerator pedal firmly to the floor. At a DVSA roadside check, they will be looking for defects and they'll share them with the traffic commissioner. Your vehicle cannot be driven until all the faults are rectified. Energy saving tyres have reduced rolling resistance, which helps to keep fuel costs down. The vehicle handbook will help to carry out maintenance and minor repairs. Workshop manuals give detailed advice about carrying out servicing, maintenance and repairs to your own vehicle. The oil filter is used to collect metal parts from the oil that come from moving parts. When diesel gets hot, it expands, so be careful on hot days not to overfill the tank. Using steering on full lock will scrub the tyres and may cause damage. Drive at a low speed to prevent this. If any lights are not working, replace them immediately. All lights must work even if it is daylight. Turbocharged engines should be allowed to idle for a minute to prevent the turbine bearings from becoming starved of oil. Check trailer tyres once a week when cold if your coach often tows a trailer. Section 9. Leaving the vehicle. It is an offence to leave your vehicle unattended with the engine running and or without applying the parking brake. You should check your right hand mirror and your blind spot before opening the door. You should wear a high-vis vest or high-vis clothes when loading and unloading. When opening tank hatches of a tanker, be aware of slippery walkways. When unloading a flatbed lorry, you should use a set of steps to reach the floor safely. Your personal safety is more at risk when driving vehicles with a valuable load. Section 10. Vehicle loading. You shouldn't use straps or ropes for metal, as the sharp edges may fray the ropes. You should use chains instead. When transporting skips, you should use a cover or a net. Loads that need sheeting, like loose dry sand, you should start at the back and put each new cover over the sheet so they overlap with the forward sheet on top. This minimises wind resistance and stops the wind from lifting the sheets. Tubular loads can often move forward if you brake hard and damage if you brake hard and damage or demolish the headboard. When roping down a sheeted load, it is best to use a dolly knot to secure the ropes. Ropes should be of 3-strand construction, a minimum of 10mm diameter, and have ends that are spliced or otherwise treated to prevent fraying. Wire ropes must be a minimum of 8mm in diameter and free of damage. When using ratchet straps to secure loads, make sure you use the correct anchorage points built into the main frame or chassis. Securing to the rope hooks can distort so the load is unstable. Only carry ISO containers on lorries or trailers with the appropriate securing points. Items on pallets, such as bricks, must be secured to the pallet, and the pallet must be secured to the vehicle. Make sure to spread the weight of the load evenly over the axles. Many loads have special training requirements. For example, if you're carrying animals or hazardous goods. The pendulum effect occurs when carrying hanging carcasses that could cause rollover or wheel lift around corners or on roundabouts. Tankers are fitted with baffle plates that stop the liquid moving from side to side, which is the wave effect. Dangerous goods must have a diamond-shaped plate that detail any hazardous loads that you are transporting. There are 9 classes of dangerous goods. You must have an ADR certificate with you at all times, which is valid for 5 years. You must be trained to deal with spillages. You must carry personal protective equipment and documentation related to the goods being carried. Wide loads over 3.5 metres need an attendant and side markers. Empty lorries are most at risk of jackknifing. After disconnecting Airlines, stow them away safely to keep them safe. A short wheelbase empty vehicle is more at risk of vehicle bounce. Locate part loads over the rear axles to prevent trailer wheels lifting when turning. The main cause of a lorry shedding its load is the driver making mistakes, for example driving too fast or turning too sharp. When driving a double-deck lorry, always load from the lower deck to prevent the lorry from being top-heavy. Demountable bodies have legs that can be lowered so the carrier vehicle can be driven out from the underneath of the body. This has an advantage over ISO containers, which require a crane or lift to remove them from the trailer. The payload is the maximum weight a vehicle can carry. When transporting frozen food, you need a hygiene training. You should lower stabilising legs before using vehicle-mounted cranes. To load evenly, the heavy items should be placed in the middle or the centre and spread out evenly. Lighter items should be placed along the sides. When working on a flatbed, make sure you are facing the edge when walking near them. When transporting livestock less than 65 kilometres or 40 miles, no formal qualification is needed. You do need practical experience in the care of the animals though. When transporting a small number of livestock, create compartments using movable panels to stop them moving too much and getting hurt. Decreasing the payload, which is the maximum authorised mass minus the curbside weight, can overload an axle, so you should redistribute the weight. Overloading an axle can cause brake fade, reduced brake efficiency, and can damage the road surface. Some chemicals need to be transported at a controlled temperature. A flame in a blue diamond means the load is dangerous when wet. Flame in a red diamond means flammable. Curtains on curtain-sided vehicles are used to protect the load from the weather. When moving a heavy object using a barrow or trolley, you should have the handles between the shoulder and the waist. Section 11, restricted view. When reversing a large vehicle, you must not use the audible warning device between 11:30 p.m. and 7 a.m. in a built-up area. Large vehicles have extra mirrors to help with pulling into the curb, reversing the vehicle, moving closer to the left during normal driving. A sleeper cab increases blind spots. MSM is mirrors signal manoeuvre. If there is a sign that has a buzz on there, a cycle and the word taxi written, and there is a white line on the right hand side, it's called a with flow buzz and cycle lane. When turning right at a roundabout with 2 lanes, you should use the left lane only if there is enough space. Section 12, essential documents. When carrying goods for hire or reward on international journeys, you must record these on a 4-page CMR consignment notes. If you drive without insurance, you'll be fined an unlimited amount. You may face a driving ban and get 6 to 8 penalty points on your licence. A SORN is a statutory off-road notification. It's valid until the vehicle is sold, taxed or scrapped. If you don't take the vehicle off the road, a SORN is if you take the vehicle off the road and don't pay tax. You can only drive without tax to a licence station for a pre-arranged MOT, for a vehicle identity check, or for a weight or emissions test. LGV should have Transports International Routers, TIR, not sure if I've said that correctly, if travelling outside the EC. Check every stop. Customs officers will also check your TIR seals. Category C means you can tow a trailer up to 750 kilograms. Or should that be 7,500 kilograms? 7.5 tonne. Don't know. I must have made a mistake there. The current fine for each person illegally carried into the UK is up to £2,000. You must immediately show the operator documentation to an immigration officer. Section 13, environmental issues. Red diesel can only be used for authorised purposes. If the filler cap is missing, it must be replaced before continuing. Dangerous goods certificate is valid for 5 years. That's called an ADR. You need police permission before you can leave a lorry weighing more than 7.5 tonnes unattended on a verge. You may park for essential loading, but you must not leave the vehicle unattended. HMRC would be looking for red diesel at a roadside check. Faulty suspension could affect road surfaces. Air suspension helps protect underground services. Low sulphur diesel provides a reduction of harmful emissions. Constant air conditioning increases fuel consumption by up to 15%. Keep the rev counter in the green coloured band for maximum fuel economy. Keeping it in the red will damage the engine. If your vehicle is fitted with an engine management system and you press the accelerator when starting the engine, you will waste fuel. The local authority checks will be looking for exhaust emissions. Section 14, other road users. The sign of a person holding a small person's hand means there may be people walking along the road. At night, if you see a person wearing reflective clothing and carrying a red light, they are at the back of an organised walk. On encountering country roads, you should expect to see pedestrians coming towards you on your side of the road. A mobility scooter must use orange flashing beacons on a dual carriageway, as with other slow-moving vehicles. Section 15. Road and traffic signs. Reflective markers on motorways have different colours. It's red markers between the hard shoulder and the carriageway, green between the carriageway and slip roads, white between the lanes, and amber between the edge of the carriageway and the central reservation. Sometimes there are fluorescent green or yellow ones, at a contraflow system or where there are roadworks. You must stop when red flashing lights show on a motorway or at fire stations or lifting bridges or level crossings. If there is a sign with a blue background and a white 30 on there, that's the minimum speed. Traffic officers only operate in England and Wales. Traffic officers can stop and direct anyone on a motorway. And that is the end of my notes. Sorry that's a bit boring, me just reading my notes there. Obviously I've just made these notes from reading this book. I can't guarantee they are perfect. So it's a bit of a disclaimer, don't just rely on my notes if you are revising. Like I say, when I've completed the theory I will give you an update to let you know if I passed or failed and what score I got. But for now I'm going to pause here, and the next time you see me I'll be telling you whether I passed or failed and what my score was for my theory test.